What's up, guys? So, hey, we are in week 3 of Loveology, and we're in week 2 of going through this book, Song of Songs, which is an ancient love poem that God gave to us that follows this couple as they progress from this courtship to engagement to marriage, their wedding night, and then we follow their life together as in a poetic way as they express this. And we're going to be in Song of Songs chapter 2 tonight. If you have a Bible, I invite you to grab it. Last week, we talked about the qualities, the things that we want, the list that we should be going after when it comes to the qualities of the person that we want to date, and one day get on the road that it ends in the process of going towards marriage together, committing your life to one another. But we talked about what are those qualities, and tonight we're going to be in Song of Songs chapter 2. And as you guys are turning there, I'll give you another romance story from my past. And so, like I said, I had many I could have chosen from for kind of crash and burns. So whenever I started dating this girl named Kirsten, and we started dating, I started hanging out with her and her family, and for a couple of months, things were going really well. Like I was going over to her house and meeting with her siblings and family, eating with them, and like really getting to know them. Things were going pretty well as we were progressing. And then one day we were supposed to be hanging out, and we had talked about how I'd come over and hang out for a little bit after she got off track practice. And so after I thought she was done with track practice, I shot her a text and said, hey, are we going to get together tonight? No answer. And so I thought, oh, okay, well, that's fine. I'll just go over there, I guess, because we had talked about a couple days ago, me coming over and hanging out. And and so I get there, and as I'm pulling up to her house, I see the red truck. Which is the truck of her ex. And so her ex is there, and I have that split-second decision, like, do I pull away? No, I don't. And so I pull up, and I park, and I'm walking up to the door, and thinking, like, this is about to happen. We're about to have the confrontation right now. And as I'm walking up, I actually, their blinds to the front room, they're open. And I see her, and I see him, and I see her head on his shoulder, and they're kind of cuddling and snuggling. And I was like, oh, fantastic! This is great. Okay, knock, 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 knock. And I wait there for about 30 seconds, and obviously she knows what's going on. No doubt she saw the silver truck that had pulled up behind her ex-boyfriend's truck, and her mom comes to the door, and she opens it. I was like, hey, we need to have this talk now. I know this is like awkward and everything. And anyway, she walks up behind her mom. Her mom kind of steps out of the way. And so it's a pretty heated, like, I'm not yelling or anything, but I'm like, so this isn't cool that you have this guy over here right now. Just want to throw that out there. And at that point, he looks at me and he actually pulls out a knife. I'm joking. He doesn't pull out a knife. That's not true. That's not true. But I did kill him. That's also not true. But I actually look at him and like we catch eyes, and I was like, man, I don't even have time to talk with you right now. My problem is that me and you were dating and thought we were exclusive, and apparently we're not. And so I was like, this isn't going to work out between us. And so I leave, and then we end up having a couple of conversations over that next week, and we decided that it wasn't going to work out. Truth be told, she actually broke up with me because I thought maybe we can work this out, and I should have not even tried, but she broke up with me. Well, fast forward now about 2 to 3 months later. So I had moved on way past this relationship that I was in, and I was actually talking with another person at this time that I was interested in, and I get this knock on my door, and lo and behold, it's Kirsten, and she's bawling. As I open the door, she is bawling, crying, and she's like, I wish that we wouldn't have broke up. And I'm like, this is weird. This was like 3 months ago, not last week. And she's crying, and she's like, I think that we made a mistake. We should get back together. And I was like, I can't do this right now. I'm actually talking with someone else right now. I can't. And so at that point, she tried to come in for a kiss. Okay. So I was like, it's not going to work. And she's like, she goes in for it. And I do the backup, like I weave it. And then I'm like, I can't kiss you. And then she literally tries again, and I'm stiff arming her. I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. And so she gets mad and says, fine, and she walks out, and I close the door, and I was like, that's the weirdest thing in the world. Well, I go upstairs into my room, and I start hearing this sound, and it's the singing sound outside of my house. And so it is Kirsten. She is now singing outside of my house, and I'm going like, what is going on? And I'm looking outside from my room. I'm like, where is she singing? And like, no offense to her, she was not a great singer. And so like, I'm hearing this, and I go downstairs, and my stepdad walks out from wherever he was, and he's like, what's going on, dude? I was like, I don't know. And so it's like two little kids watching the snowfall. Like, we're looking through the blinds, like, looking to see, like, where is this girl at? And we cannot see her anywhere. And I'm like, this is turning in, like, I'm starting to get a little terrified on the inside. I'm like, where is the singing coming from? She's everywhere. She is omnipresent right now. This is like exorcism of Emily Rose is about to take place kind of thing. And then my stepdad finally sees where she is and goes, Travis, dude, she is on the top of the cab of your truck. And so she was on the top of the cab of my truck, and her arms were out wide, and she was singing her song to me. And I was like, man, I can't handle it. I'm actually terrified. I'm scared. And he's like, I got this. And so he walks out and says, what are you doing? And she was like, I need to talk to your son. He was like, no, you need to leave. And so that's the last that I talked to Kirsten. Now I share that because it's kind of, it would have played out like really well for like a teen drama show or something like that. You're on the edge of your seat, you're wondering what's going to happen next, and there's these highs and these lows, and the cheating, and I want you back, and all this stuff, and man, it's like this roller coaster ride that I found myself getting on over and over and over and over again, and it played out well for TV, but I'm telling you, it does not play out well for actual romantic connections. It does not play well when you are actually in a relationship. And so a lot of us, maybe it's not so extreme as that, but what we do is we find ourselves getting on the roller coaster dating ride, where we get on, there's the twists and turns on the inside, there's highs and then there's lows, and then the ride comes to an end, and there might be a little bit of a relationship baggage from that, and you get off of that ride just to get onto another one to have the same twists, turns, hurts, pains, emotional highs, emotional lows, and then you get off and you do it again. And man, the way that we are dating and the way that we're going about relationships in our culture, it is broken. And the process that I was stuck in was broken. And God has given us a better process as we look at this poetic expression of what love should really look like. As they go and they deepen in their attraction and in their commitment to one another, more importantly, as they get ready for marriage, how do we walk in the process of actually having a marriage one day that is a good one, and one that God would want for us, and one that we would want for ourselves? And we're going to go over several questions I think that are going to be very, very good for us as we think about this process of dating, ultimately ending in the goal of marriage and going God's way, instead of following the process that so many of us have followed over and over and over again. How do we date healthy? So Song of Songs chapter 2, we're going to see this as this couple deepens in their love. And so it's going to begin with her. In chapter 2, she's speaking, and she says to the groom-to-be, I am a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. And what she's saying is that I am very common. I'm just like one among Millie. I'm one among many other flowers that are in the field, and I'm very, very common. Whenever you look at me like, why would you want me? And then what he's going to say is, as a lily among brambles, the groom-to-be is responding, so is my love among the young women. And so basically what he says is, no, you're like a rose among thorns. And so the first question this evening is this: does this person see the best in you? Does this person, as you are dating and as you start to date seriously, even from the get-go really, does this person see the best in you? So she's insecure, and he meets her insecurity with compliment. And like many women, my wife, she will often talk to me about her bodily insecurities. Like, she'll go, I wish I looked more like this, or had less here, more there, all this stuff. And she'll talk about the things that she sees in the mirror that she wished that were different. And I always meet that insecurity. I always try to meet that insecurity with compliment, not because I feel like I have to, but because I think that she's beautiful. And that's what you want. You want a guy that's going to meet the insecurity with compliment. And this is vice versa, by the way, but this is from the female perspective that we're reading right now. He's going to say, no, you stick out to me. You're like a rose among thorns. Or the way it says in the text, a lily among brambles. You're like the flower in the thorny bush. Compared to everyone else, you're the one that my sights are set on. And I love how this comparison here, because his eyes are for only her. And I've said this in other dating series that we've done, but I'll say it again. Right now, you are training yourself, because his eyes are for only her. You are training yourself now to have eyes for only your spouse later. Right now you are. And what I mean by that is I'll have conversations with people and many people I've had conversations with. And this is one of the topics that we bring up as we talk through their struggle with pornography, their addiction to pornography. And I would say that, man, hey, right now you are choosing to train yourself to have eyes for your wife one day, or eyes for your husband one day, or you're choosing to have eyes for everyone else if you don't focus that in. So which person do you want to be is what we'll talk through. And usually they say, I want to have eyes for only my wife one day, or I want to have eyes for only my husband one day, for my spouse. And I'll say, and we'll talk through the things that are important to get free from that. But for you, and with lust in general, like if you don't handle this now, it will handle you later. And so you want to prepare yourself to where your spouse is like the rose among the thorns, because you have eyes for only that person. That they are your standard of beauty, and that happens by training yourself now, by not letting yourself just have the eyes wander and lust go rampant. And so does this person see the best in you? And then the next question is this: does he make you feel safe? Specifically for a woman that's looking to marry a man, does he make you feel safe? Verse 3. It's this picture of safety. It says, as an apple tree among the trees of the forest, she says, so is my beloved among the young men. With the great delight I sat in his shadow, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. And so it's this picture of this apple tree, and it's really a picture of safety in several ways that I'm about to talk through here in just a second. But just a couple weeks ago, I had a conversation with my daughter. So my 7-year-old, usually we'll read her nighttime devotional, and then we'll go and we'll pray prayers in the bed with her, and then we'll leave, and I'll walk out, and about half the time or so, I'll sit down. It's at the end of the day, I'm tired, and I'll put on The Office or something like that, and we'll just start watching one of our shows, or This Is Us, which is an incredible show, something like that. We'll watch our show, and then I'll hear, Daddy, and I'll act like I don't hear it, because that's what dads do. And then it just gets a lot louder about 30 seconds later, Daddy! And so I'm like, what? And so I go in there, and she always says, Daddy, will you snuggle with me? Which I just can't say no to. And so I snuggle with her for about 15 minutes. I'll say, Daddy, I'll snuggle with you. And the last couple of weeks, she said this to me multiple times. She'll say, Daddy, I just love whenever you get to snuggle with me. And I always say, why, baby? It's this sweet moment. She said this, because you make me feel so safe. Because you make me feel so safe. And what struck me is that as a 7-year-old, she already has that deeply ingrained in her, that she longs for safety. And I think there's a very unique way that God's daughters long for safety from their future husbands. That person should make you feel safe. Why does she feel safe? What's this picture of the apple tree? How do we get that from here? Well, the apple tree would have provided protection for her from the scorching sun in this culture. And so she would have sat in its shade, in his company, it's feeling protection. And so men, we are called to be protectors. And so here, let me give you this example. So I've never, how every now and then you'll hear something will drop in the house, and you're like, what was that? And you have the thoughts in your mind that go back and forth, like, oh, do I go and check it out? No, it's nothing. But what if it's a killer? But what if it's... And then you're like, I need to go check just to have peace of mind. And so what I've never had happen is something fall, like a big boom or something like that. And then I turn to Carrie and I go, hey, babe, did you hear that? And she says, yes. Hey, stay here. I'm going to go check it out. My wife has never said that to me. I've never turned to Carrie and gone, baby, would you go check it out? I'm going to stay here. Like, that's just never happened. By the way, if your girl is like an MMA fighter, hey, baby, you go on. You got this. But typically, it's going to be me. It's going to be me. And that was just like an understood. Like, we never had to have that talk. Like, it was never, hey, I'll get this one. Should you get that? No, it's you. Because the men are called to be protectors. I believe that. I'm called to be the protector of my family, and not just like protect you from dangers, but just to be that protective, that shade covering over my wife and my girls. And then we see that the tree, it provided nourishment for her. And so there is provision here. So I see myself as the provider for my family, and I'm not talking about finances. A lot of people talk about finances, and that's it. I think that it's fine if a girl makes more or the woman makes more money than the man, but I'm called to be the provider when it comes to investing in the emotional lives of my wife and my daughters, that I'm to instill confidence in them like we talked about last week, and I'm to be the listening ear for my wife whenever she has a tough day, and I'm supposed to be the spiritual encourager of my family, to point them towards Jesus in everything that I can through my example and the words that I share and the way that I pray over them. I'm to be that for my family. Like, that's my goal. And none of us are going to get this perfect, but that's the pursuit that I'm on, that I would be this kind of provider for my family. And by the way, like, consider this, that the same guy that you marry is one day going to be called daddy by your kids. And you want that person to be somebody that can provide, not just be a hard worker, but provide emotionally, spiritually, in their encouragement for you. And same thing with the wives as well. But there's provision, and then there's pleasure here. Like, she finds his company to be enjoyable. And so I think, like, just simply put, like, do you actually enjoy the person's company, or do you just like their lips? You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we're like, man, I think that they're very, very cute, and then there's like nothing underneath that. Like, and that's the whole relationship cannot be built on the fact that there's a strong attraction in the beginning because you find them to be very cute. Because listen, at the end of the day, we all, if God lets us live that long, turn 80, and gravity wins every time. Okay, and so there, but she enjoys his company. That what I say whenever I do a wedding, I say that you are marrying your best friend right now in this moment, and that's what you want. That's the process. That's the track that you are on, that you would be best friends. So there's protection, there's provision, there's pleasure. This is what it means to be under the umbrella of feeling safe, and this is what's pictured here in this verse. And then the next question that we see tonight is love the word that defines your relationship? Out of all the words that could define your relationship, is love that word? Because what she says is, he brought me to the banqueting house, which would be like Las Brisas, a steak and wine place kind of deal. And his banner over me was love. That there's this banner over our relationship, and if there was one word that would define the relationship for her, she said that word would be love, that he loves me. For you, whenever you're in a relationship, like, is that the word? If you're in a relationship right now or in your past, was the word love? Did that actually define your relationship? The word love here is the Hebrew word ahava. Y'all want to give it a go? Say ahava. Ahava. What it means is affection, care, loyalty. It's this love that stays, this love that's committed, this love that can be measured in sacrifice for the other. This is the kind of love that I'm talking about. Is this the one word that would define the relationship for you? Or is it drama, sex, instability, arguments? Would it be another word? You want it to be this word, love. So there's been several engagements, as you can probably imagine, at the Way, especially in the springtime, because, Ring by Spring and all that stuff. But several engagements have taken place, and several of them have been actually on our leadership team here at the Way, but one of them was Grant and Reagan. They got engaged recently, and Grant, he pulled out all the stops. He took her to her family's ranch where she had this tree house, or they have this tree house. He had it all decorated, decked out, had some friends and family there, and he learned this song on the ukulele. So, man, my man just was jamming out. And so he played this song for her on the ukulele, and then as he ended the song and was asking her to marry him, he said this, and I quote, "I love you so much, Reagan. I've seen the Lord do amazing things in you and through you, and I've seen the journey that He's sent you on and the path He set you on. And I want to be part of your journey for the rest of my life. And I want to work together with you for the rest of our lives towards his kingdom. Man, beautiful. His banner over her is love. And that's what you want. That's what we're after, that kind of love. And the next question that we're going to see here is, do you have boundaries? Do you have boundaries? Talking about boundaries physically. Look at verses 5 through 7 with me. In verse 5, it says, sustain me with raisins. And so this is kind of lost on us in our culture, but the ancient raisin cakes, some of your versions might say raisin cakes, but a raisin cake would have caused everybody, as they read this, they would have done a double take, and they would have looked twice to see what they just read, because raisins or raisin cakes in this culture, they were an aphrodisiac, and they were given in the form and in the shape of phallic symbols, okay? And so it was in the symbol of private parts. And so just imagine like someone coming into church tonight eating a raisin cake. You'd be like, that's pretty weird. But this is what she said. So she is turned on at this moment. Like, she desires him sexually. She says, sustain me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am sick with love. And then she says, his left hand is under my head, and his right hand embraces me. So he's in the position of passionately making out, if not making love in this moment. And so this is where, she's saying, this is my desire in the moment. And if you just stopped right there, you would think, oh man, like, they're about to hop on the good foot and do the bad thing. Am I right? Like, this is probably about to happen here in this moment. But then she says this, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the does of the field. Again, this is lost on us, but again, people would have done a double take, because what's poetically being expressed here, as they would have read gazelles or the does of the field, they would have thought, oh dear. Get it? Because the does. That was a pretty good one, though, right? Yeah. Someone gave me a couple bucks to say that. All right, cool. But to quote one theologian as I was studying this, one commentary said she is drawing a picture with the gazelles and the does. The reason why she says that is because she's drawing a picture of the female as beautiful, vigorous, and sexually active. And all God's people said, amen. Okay? And so this is the picture here. So she has sexual desire for him, but then she says this next line. She's going to say that you do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. That I have these desires right now, these natural desires, as your banner over me is love, as we are getting close to getting married and things are progressing emotionally with us. Like, there's these desires that I want to have physically as well, but she's going to say, hey, it's not time yet. It's not time. It is not time. Don't arouse a sexual desire until the right time, is what this is teaching us. Or you could say, have boundaries. That there is a boundary that she had already had set. And this is, again, where a lot of people are going to say, this is like, why is that such an issue with you Christians? Like, why can't you just go and as long as it's consensual, why can't you just enjoy having sex in a relationship? And I would say because it's much more than just two bodies, like we talked about last week. But a lot of people have expressed this and even thought, I'm not going to give God that part of my life. I'm just going to do everything else that a Christian would do, but I'm not going to follow God in that area because I don't think it's a big deal. And I had one guy that I met with last semester, and as we were meeting, he said that he felt distance from God in general. And as we started to have the conversation, he said that he was frustrated even at God in this moment. And one of the reasons why was because him and his girlfriend had kind of led in this, making some stricter boundaries for them to follow when it came to sex and it came to lust and things like that. And he was frustrated. And he said, I just don't understand, and he said this quote, why would God keep that from me? Why would God keep that from me? And I was thankful for the answer that I believe God gave me in the moment, because I just said that I believe that God very well might be asking you the same question. Like, why would he keep that from me? Like, why, if I'm good, which is God speaking, if I'm good and I have the best plan for your life and I love you, I'm the one that gave my life for you, why don't you trust me with that area of your life? Like, what if God's design is actually the design that's going to give you the most pleasure in your life in the long run? I believe that that's true. And as we had that conversation, I'm praying over that guy, and I'm praying over you as well, that you would believe that what if God is actually not trying to rip us off, but God has something good for us, even whenever it comes to our sexuality, and that we would walk out saying, God, I pray that I would believe that in our relationships. Like, what if tonight, this is how huge this issue is, man. Like, what if tonight, or what if at the end of this series, but maybe starting tonight, like, you resolve in your heart that you will not be another person's regret. And another person will not be your regret because you gave yourself to them sexually. And they gave themselves to you. Like, what if you resolve that would be true of you tonight? I believe that can be. It can be for all of us. And I'm about to share more about this, but I've been there. And God has shown me that his way is better whenever it comes to this issue. And so don't awaken love until it's the right time. And so in that right time is in the context of marriage. So what boundaries should there be to not awaken love? Well, one, I would say pray to God. And then you need to have that conversation with the person that you're dating. So pray to God for your personal boundaries that you want to set, but then to have that conversation with the person that you're dating. And anything that prepares your body for sex, anything that leads to arousal is going to be something that's going to be crossing the line. And so for me and my wife, when we started dating, again, everything else was train wreck after train wreck before her. I decided I was going to surrender that area of my life to the Lord. And then we started dating a little while after that. And we found out very quickly that, you know what, man, when we make out, it just leads to things like my mind definitely wanted to go to places it shouldn't, and my hands wanted to go to places they shouldn't. And so we found out very quickly that making out was something that was off limits. And I think there's a lot of wisdom to that, by the way. I've yet to meet a lot of people, anybody, honestly, that says, oh, we can make out for 15, 20 minutes and nothing. I have zero other desire to do anything else. But for us, we had to have that as one of the lines that we're just not going to cross. Hold hands, hug, kiss. But we had things that we wanted to wait because it wasn't the right time to stir up or awaken something. Because when you awaken that love in your life, it's something that's not meant to be put back to sleep whenever it becomes awake. Like when you get married and that's awakened, it's not meant to go to sleep at that point. It's meant to be enjoyed in the right context. And then another thing, I had a lot of practical things I was going to go through tonight, but for time's sake, I just wanted to address this one issue that it seems to come up quite a bit. And it's this, should a person, someone will ask the question like, okay, hey, so we're not having sex. Is it okay that even though, so we're staying the night together, but we're not having sex, but is it okay that we sleep in the same bed as long as lines aren't being crossed? And I would say hard line, no. And here's why. One, Scripture says that there should not even be a hint of sexual immorality. When you are going to sleep next to somebody else in a bed and the lights are off at night, I'm telling you that it hints that there is something else going on behind those doors. And it's really difficult for me to wrap my mind around the fact that you can be next to somebody that you find very attractive, for fellas, a beautiful girl, and that you end up not like messing around. How does that happen? And if you go, hey, we can truly sleep in the same bed and we haven't messed around and hands haven't went where they shouldn't, or lines haven't been crossed that biblically should not be crossed, I would say you have another set of problems because you're actually training yourself to not have sex when you do get married. If you can stay in the same bed, sleep together, and never have sex, and then all of a sudden you think when you get married, it's going to be like, oh, now I just want to have sex all the time. Kind of bad training. That's for free. Because like in the right place, right time, it's good. But I would also end with this. Sharing a bed in and of itself is an act of intimacy. Sharing a bed is an act of intimacy. Here's what I mean. If I was to come home at the end of a day, and I walk into the house and I'm like, hey, I'm home. And then Carrie goes, hey, babe, we're back here. And I walk into the room and I see my wife, and they're both fully clothed, but I see my wife and another dude on our bed, and I see him like just arm on my pillow, looking up, like crossed legs, and just like, hey, what's up, buddy? I think biblically I have to fight that guy. I think that's what I just got to do. Why? Because none of us would be like, oh yeah, that's totally okay. That's not okay. You don't do that. So the sharing a bed in and of itself is an act of intimacy. It is. And so what should the lines be that you need to have that you're going, I'm not going to cross these because I'm not going to awaken something that should not be awakened? And I would say this as we move on, decide what your boundaries will be beforehand, because in the moment it will feel right. Sexual temptation and crossing that line will feel right in the moment. So decide beforehand, because it feels right in the moment. It will. That's what the temptation is going to be screaming at you. And then let's move on to verse 8. It says, "The voice of my beloved, behold, he comes, leaping over the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Behold, there he stands behind our wall." And then it says this interesting line, "gazing through the windows, looking through the lattice." I always get this picture, so I got this picture that I want to show you. This is the picture that I always get when I read that line. Every time. Every time. And I just want to stop and say, this is not an invitation for you to be a stalker, okay? This is not what this is teaching us. This is his poetic, his silent invitation for her to come and join him. It's kind of like in the old school movies where the guy's throwing the pebbles at the window trying to get his girl to come down to spend time with him. That's kind of what this is actually communicating. But it says, verse 10, "My beloved speaks to me and says to me, 'Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away.'" And then we're going to get to this next question. The next question that I wanted to ask is this, does being together make you better? Does being together make you better? And we get this from these next few verses. "For behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone, the flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree ripens its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance." What season is this? Spring. This is spring. "Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away." And so the spring is this time of blossoming, this time of growth. And she's saying, like, this is like our relationship. Like, you make me better. You make me grow. You make me blossom as a person. And this is what you want from somebody as you start to seriously date. Does that person make you better? Like my wife, Carrie, she's the biggest blessing in my life outside of my own salvation. And I pray that that can be true of you and the person that you one day marry as well. Does the person make you better? And then the next question is have you had the vulnerable heart-to-heart conversations that prepare you for marriage? And this, again, like they are progressing in the next chapter. They're about to get married. And so this happens as the relationship is progressing and getting serious. You start to have these heart-to-heart conversations, these vulnerable conversations that are the conversations that you need to have before you get married. And we see this in verse 14 in this picture of his invitation, calling her a dove. He says, "Oh, my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the crannies of the cliff, let me see your face. Let me hear your voice. For your voice is sweet and your face is lovely." And so doves would have had their nests high up in the mountains where they would have been protected from predators. And they had been deep in the clefts of the rocks. That way nothing could get to them. And so he says, would you come down to me? Would you be vulnerable with me? Would you open yourself up to me? And whenever you start dating seriously, there's some conversations that need to happen. There's some vulnerability that needs to be there. And so what are a couple of those conversations? Well, this is whenever you're going to share those things that you naturally want to keep hidden like the dove was hidden in the cleft of the rock. So your insecurities, your wounds, your scars. So for me, I had talked a little bit about my dad at this point whenever Carrie and I were dating seriously, but she was the first person that I really opened up to. And I shared about the abandonment issues that are in my life because my dad not being present. And I opened up to her and was even willing to be emotional in front of her, which was not an easy thing for me at that time. And I opened up to her about that. So like this is where a lot of wounds, scars, and insecurities come from, is this issue in my life. And she opened up to me about her insecurities as well. And then you want to have this conversation, the mistakes that you've had in your life, the mistakes that you've committed in your life. So I remember with my wife, whenever I was in her Cobalt, and I was in the passenger seat, and we had the conversation where I confessed to her that though she had waited till we got married to have sex with me, I did not save myself to have sex with her. And man, I'm going to be honest with you, it hurt her in the moment, and it was through a lot of tears that I cried as I shared with her that I wish I could take that back, but that's something that happened in my life. And she responded by saying that she loved me. She said, I love you. And then after that, she said, I forgive you. And from then on, she has not brought that issue up again. And man, it's really a picture that she was really echoing the forgiveness of Jesus in my life, because what Jesus does whenever he looks at all the brokenness and he looked at all of my sexual baggage that I had and the shame that I had because of it and the weight that I carried because of it, he said that he would break that chain off of me, forgive me. And then he says about his forgiveness that he casts it as far as the east is from the west, that he will remember it no longer. And I'm just so thankful that that's what God does. And if you're here and you go, man, I've got a truckload of mistakes in my past, a truckload of sexual baggage that, man, I'm just shattered on the inside because you know that you've made some mistakes. I'm telling you that God is saying, you can bring those to me. You can bring those to me, and I will power wash your soul clean, and I will redeem you, because that's what God does. He's a God who he redeems us, and he washes us clean. And my wife, she was echoing that in that moment. And I was so thankful for that. But no matter what your mistake was, I guarantee you that Jesus will forgive it. And then the last question this evening is have you caught the foxes? Have you caught the foxes? What do I mean by that? Well, it comes directly from verse 15. Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that spoil the vineyards, for our vineyards are in blossom. She said, so there's this great growth that's going on, but would you make sure that there's no foxes that are present? Foxes were a nuisance that would have destroyed the crop and eaten away at what could have been. What could have produced a crop was eaten away by these foxes that would come in and destroy everything. And what God is teaching us here is, listen, you don't want to have a relationship that could have been. You don't want to get married to somebody and have a marriage that could have been. God's going, no, I want you to step into my best for you. And again, none of us, we're all in process here tonight. None of us are getting it perfect all the time. But in that, would you start to say, God, what are the problem areas in my life that you want me to address? Those are the foxes. Anything that's going to keep you from God's best in your relationship. Or you can say it this way. If you want to write something down, you can write this down. A healthy we can't exist without a healthy me. A healthy we can't exist without a healthy me. And so what are the personal issues in your life that you need to bring before God so that way God can start to address those things? Like I shared about, maybe it's a deep wound from a parent. So I harbored unforgiveness in my life. I harbored bitterness in my life. And I realized, man, I have got to forgive my dad, because here's the truth about bitterness. Bitterness leaks. What do I mean by that? I mean, you cannot just compartmentalize that to one relationship. It leaks to every other relationship in your life. And I shared this whenever I shared about the forgiveness of God and how he calls us to forgive in another message. And this was really helpful for people. But what I said is that God fills. And when I realized God speaking to my own life, just me before God, how do I forgive my dad for the times that he didn't show up and he said he was going to be there and just bold-faced lied to me? How do I forgive that, God? And what I had just in my heart, the Holy Spirit speaking to me said, God fills where your dad failed. And no matter who it is in your life, God fills where blank failed. Whoever fills that blank for you, God fills where they failed. Address the unforgiveness in your life so that way it doesn't lead to issues like a quick temper and things like that, and distrust. Address the lust issues in your life. Address the past relationship baggage like I brought into our relationship. I brought in jealousy and mistrust, and you don't want a marriage that's filled with mistrust. You don't. But I was jealous because of the way that things had played out, not only on my end, but the other person's end. It was all a mess. And I need to address, I need to bring that relationship baggage to God and say, God, heal me. And he has, and he still is. And your selfishness, ask God to address your selfishness. You want to know what a great spouse is? A selfless one. A selfless one. Your comparison issues. Your idolatry, what do you love in your life more than God? What do you love in your life more than God? Because the truth of the matter is a great marriage has God at the center. And I'll go one more than that. A great life has God at the center of it. Is God at the center of your life? Is he? Is he at the center of your life? Or do you have a lot of other things that are before him? Because it's going to be God that holds your life together in every area, including the one we're talking about. And then verse 16 ends with, my beloved is mine and I am his. And this is really the love that we all want, this fully giving, fully taking of each other love. Like, this is what we really desire in our lives. And I've been reading a book by a guy named Andrew Murray, and he said this about love, specifically talking about the love of God. He says, love gives all, but love asks all. Now, this is the love that we really want. The love that is all giving, but the love that's also going to see saying, I now want all from you. Like this is the kind of love that we want. Ultimately, this love, this all giving love that we all desire and we all crave deep down in our soul, in our being. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not. I know that you crave love in this place because God created us to be loved by him. And he is the source. Ultimately, this love is purely, perfectly, and without fault found in one place, and that place is Jesus and him alone. He is the love that we're actually all after, and this love is the love that was all giving. Like while he was on the cross, while I was still a sinner, like while I was living my life the way I wanted to, he died on the cross for me, and he was saying, as the passerbys were going past him, he was saying, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing, as they were crucifying him. And as I lived against Jesus, he was saying, God, would you forgive him? God, I offer my forgiveness to Travis. And his arms were nailed open for me. And he was teaching me in that moment that his arms were open for me to come to him. And his love is real. And his love is not just for everybody else. It's for you. He does love you. It's an all-giving love, but it's also a love that says, now would you surrender all to me? Like, would you come to Jesus and would you say, Jesus, I surrender to the God who gave all to me? It's the only response that makes any sense when you consider everything that he's done. Would you surrender your life to him? Love gives all, but love asks all. Let's pray. God, Lord, there's a lot of people in this room that are all across the spectrum when it comes to following you and where they stand with you. And Jesus, I just pray over every person present that what they would realize that you gave all for us and that you offer for us to come to you, open arms that were nailed open on the cross because of your love for us. And that we would say, God, I give you my life. And Lord, I give you this area of my life when it comes to dating and marriage and sex. I surrender this area of my life to you, believing that your way is better, truly. And if you don't know Jesus, you can come to him now. He's waiting for you. He's waiting for all of us. Let's worship.
Man, if you need to talk